If you didn't watch yesterday's show, you need to go back and watch it because you missed a lot. A lot of what we're talking about today basically is going to sum up yesterday. But first of all, guys, welcome into the College Football Nightcap. I'm your host, as always, Lucas Hill. We are going to have a jam-packed show for you today. We got to talk about potentially the future of the SEC. We got to talk about what is going to happen to the SEC. What is going to be the future, especially in regards to this year for the SEC? Because we have to be honest with ourselves and really look at the SEC with a clear lens and realize that they are in trouble. The SEC yesterday, all year long, during preseason, we heard that this was going to be the year with expanded playoff was going to continue to prove of the SEC's dominance over the other major conferences. I believed it. I talked about it a lot with SEC Unfiltered. I talked about it a lot with other individuals. But But if you want to be honest and if we want to be real about what we saw yesterday from Georgia, from Tennessee, from the first round buys that we saw, there's a legitimate problem. It really is, dude. And there's a problem not just with that, but also with a lot to look forward to in the SEC. If you're watching on Instagram, if you're watching on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, I don't think we're posted on Facebook just yet. Yeah, actually we are. Actually, we can post on Facebook. Why not? But no. If we're being real about this, the SEC is in a bind. It's in a legitimate bind that, look, we really need to consider where they are at this point. We look at the SEC and we see it just means more. We see the SEC and we look at the hype behind them. We look at the Blue Bloods. We do. And legitimately so. But if we want to be realistic, this was a bad year for the SEC to have in the first playoff. Because the Big Ten ultimately is kicking ass, dude. It is. This was the one thing the SEC wanted to avoid, was this specific thing. And if we're being real, I don't think the SEC was ready for this. They're getting absolutely humiliated during bowl season. And I mean, we see Lane Kiffin, which I love Lane Kiffin. Absolutely respect the dude. Absolutely love what he is about. But if we're being honest, this was not the thing that you needed. This was not what anybody had in mind going into bowl season. Was the SEC, I think, legitimately had only 3 teams: Georgia, Texas, and Tennessee. That's the only 3. The Big Ten whipped ass. Oregon, Ohio State, Penn State, Indiana, 4-3. ACC got 2. You got SMU and you got Clemson, although both did get humiliated to start off. But you get my point, is that the SEC has a problem. And I think they get too in over their heads sometimes. And this is coming from somebody that covers the SEC. And it really does pain for me to say this, but I think we're entering a bad year for the SEC. We're entering a pretty dark year for the SEC. I think that with NIL and with the transfer portal being so commonly used now, it makes other P4 conferences like the Big Ten and like, hell, even the ACC and even the Big 12. I mean, Cam Scatterbo came from Sacramento State and turned it up at Arizona State. We see other conferences that are starting to contend. The Big Ten just captured their first national title since 2014 when Ohio State won it. I think that it's becoming more and more prevalent now that these other big-time conferences are starting to get their fair share of what they've worked hard to get. And it sucks for the SEC. It sucks for their brand because they say it just means more. But what do you have? The SEC is in legitimate danger of missing out on the national championship for the second year in a row. It'd be only this would be the first time that the SEC would lose out an opportunity to be in a national championship in back-to-back years since the 2004 and 2005 seasons, when you had Oklahoma and USC represent in the Orange Bowl, and when you had Texas and USC represent in the Rose Bowl that next year. So Texas is the only hope. And even then, I don't really feel confident about Texas. I think this Ohio State team is pissed. They heard the talk before the postseason. They heard the talk about how humiliated they were. The media drugged them. We drugged them through the mud. I did not think that Ohio State was going to even make it past Tennessee at home, let alone even if they did win at home. I didn't think they'd have a prayer of winning it again against Oregon. But I was wrong. This team is pissed. And I think Chip Kelly has finally realized he's got dudes on the outside that Will Howard can throw to. He has elite talent that Will Howard can throw to, and he needs it. He absolutely needs it. And it was important that they dominated in the portal this season. It is important that when you look at where Ohio State was, this was a broken team. You got humiliated by your rival for the fourth year in a row in a year where Jim Harbaugh's not there. J.J. McCarthy's not there. This was a bad Michigan team that looked so inconsistent throughout the year, and somehow, some way, they punched you square in the mouth in the offense on both sides of the line of scrimmage. But the last two games, you have proven yourself and are a legit threat to college football. You are the betting favorites to win the national title. And I was listening to Dan Orlovsky and all the other guys on Get Up this earlier during the week. They said it would be a disappointment if Ohio State didn't win the national title. They said it would be insane if they ended up missing out and if they got knocked out next week. And they said it would put more pressure on Ryan Day. I don't think Ryan Day's not going anywhere, first of all. Even if he would have went one and done in the postseason, he wasn't getting fired. He's got a big buyout. You think Ohio State wants to pay that? No. They love Ryan Day. They respect the guy. I know that he went through a lot, knowing that what you saw at the end of that Michigan game where he's just standing there while his dudes are fighting, while his players are going at it after they got it handed to by Michigan, you have to legitimately think about what was going through his mind and what he saw, or at least what he heard at Woody Hayes' facility. There was a lot of crap going on in Columbus, and the attitude has shifted so quickly. Ohio State is probably going to end up winning the national title. They were projected to win it earlier in the year. They were a favorite. And I think now you're truly seeing one of the most dominant rosters in college football finally living up to its full potential. You're seeing why they spent all this money in the transfer portal. You're seeing why they get these talented guys. You see why they got another back like Quinshon Judkins from Ole Miss to pair him along with Travion Henderson. You see the amount of talent that's on this roster. You see what they've done at the receiving corps with Jeremiah Smith and with Emeka Egbuka. You see what this offensive line can really be about. We've seen what this defensive line can be. This defensive line has dominated the last two games against Tennessee and against Oregon. It's truly been a dominant performance that we have yet to have really seen in college football in a while. In two games, it was impressive. And it's only going to get better from here for them. So let's go ahead and take a look at some comments. Gary LaPrairie, my buddy. It is also crazy. It also is crazy when you see the young guys go and get NILs from SEC teams and they realize they won't be an instant starter, so they transfer with all this money and they grabbed and they leave. One great example of that was Caden Proctor this past year. He went to Iowa, grabbed a bag, and then dipped and came back to Alabama. I know that's not really an SEC type of example for you, but that's just one of the things that I wrote down. But no, it's very prevalent. So, if we're being real, we have to be real about the SEC and realize that since 2021, competition has gone way up. Since the portal's become more relevant. Since we've finally gotten money to spend on dudes in the portal, we can finally be able to build our roster and we can truly make ourselves a national title contender. Or at least, even if not you're a title contender, you can do what Colorado did and transform themselves from a 1-win team 2 years ago to a 9-win team and a team that was this close to participating in the Big 12 title, which I thought was unbelievable. And it just goes to show you the effect of what these coaches and what NIL can do. I mean, this team went from a 1-11 to a 4-8 to a 9-4 team. You don't really see that. BYU did the same thing. You used the transfer portal to your advantage. Kalani Sitake could have been fired after last year. And instead, he comes back this next year, starts the season off undefeated, rough way to end, but you win 10 games. I mean, what a great season that BYU had. That's what you needed. That is what you needed from that team. And there's so much left. But anyway, if we're being real, we need to be able to look at the SEC and realize that it's not all just about them anymore. It's legitimately about what college football has turned into. Since the money has become prevalent and since the portal has become in use, we're seeing a lot more around college football really utilize what this